Hi folks, welcome to your best French wine tasting kit from Smash Grapes. Coming up, you've got our 6 drink-along videos with a little bit more information on all the wines in your kit. Enjoy. This is the Pick and Mix Picpoul Terre from Côte d'Ivoire in France.
Yes, we're in a beautiful part of France for this wine. The Côte d'Ivoire is Europe's largest saltwater lagoon. Lying just off the Med in the south of France, it's particularly well known as the place where France does almost all of its mussel and oyster farming. No surprise then that this is a region that produces great white wines, perfect for pairing with fish and seafood. In fact, they've even put it on the label.
Yeah, I mean, very nice. And look, this is a 50-50 blend here, isn't it? One of the grapes I've recently grown to know and love, after a recommendation from you, Sam, actually. The other, I've never heard of.
Yes, this is a region pretty much only deals with its own native grape varieties. No Sauvignons or Chardonnays to speak of here. The first grape is Picpoul, sometimes spelled with a Q, sometimes spelled with a C, depending on where you are. Picpoul de Pinet is a white that we are starting to see more often in the supermarkets or on a wine list. That's the recent favourite of yours, isn't it? It is. Confusingly, Picpoul de Pinet is actually a place or region, not the grape, but does contain 100% Picpoul the grape. This wine is 50% Picpoul and 50% Terre, an ancient grape variety that goes back centuries. It's been used in vermouth making for a long time, and it's also one of the permitted grapes in the world-famous Châteauneuf de Pape.
Now, for me, Picpoul is the ultimate patio wine. It's crisp, simple, ridiculously refreshing. I like to get it super chilled and smash a couple on a hot summer's day. This is giving me all the same feels.
Absolutely. Terre is also what's called an early ripener, which enables it to maintain high acidity, which is the most important ingredient for that refreshment factor. This wine has had a touch of lees aging, where yeast is left in for a short spell before filtering out to make the wine taste richer, but only the slightest whiff. We are definitely, as you say, in the clean and crisp territory here.
And I guess if it's not in the sun on its own, based on what you said, this is an easy pairing, right?
Yeah, you got it. I mean, it says on the label, perfect with seafood. They say you can almost taste the saltiness, in fact, in this wine from the nearby lagoon. Not sure about that, but I know I could definitely sit through a fair bit of this with a fruit de mer.
Oh, fancy.
Cheers.
This is Le Chien Blanc from the Roussillon in France.
Yes, no grape variety to speak of here, as we are drinking a field blend, meaning a variety of grapes are planted in the field, usually in no order, with not much record, harvested all together and made into one wine.
So, not what we're used to then when it comes to looking at wine. Is that something that's new?
No, quite the opposite actually. Field blends are a more traditional way of growing and making wine. The idea being that as different grapes do better in different weather conditions, you hedge your bets by having a decent variety growing across the field. That way, whether it's a particularly hot year or a particularly cold year, there's always going to be a consistent crop.
Okay. So vineyards or winemakers that specialise in just 1 or 2 grapes, that's actually the new thing.
Yes, that's right. Having what we call a single varietal wine is actually a fairly modern concept, something that came in with the rise of New World wine regions. However, it leaves them open to risk. If you have the perfect temperature or climate to grow, say, Sauvignon Blanc, and then one year it's freakishly hot, the Sauvignon will suffer. You'll either get less wine or it will taste different, which usually leads to price changes. With field blends, having different players that can do well in different conditions, you're going to increase your chances of winning.
Okay, so that's all well and good, but how am I going to know that I'll like a field blend if I don't know what's in it?
Just like any wine, it's less about the grape and more about the climate of the region. This is the warmest part of France, and the ABV of this wine shows that 13.5%, these grapes have soaked up the southern sun and ripened up fully, creating lots of sugars to mostly turn into alcohol. Great, but also create rich tropical fruit flavours. It's the heat of this part of France that creates a pretty full-bodied white wine.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely taste the extra weight in this one. The body is how it feels in the mouth, isn't it? Like the difference between skimmed and full-fat milk. There's definitely a thicker kind of texture to it. So what am I eating with this one then?
This is a big white wine, so it could probably handle a bit of pork, perhaps some herby chops or a bit of belly with like a creamy sauce.
Oh, I'm all over that. Cheers. This is the Passage du Sud Vermentino from Pays d'Oc in France.
Yes, a grape variety that, though was born in and sounds very much like it comes from Italy, has found its new home in the south of France. We're of course drinking a white wine here, but since Vermentino's rise to popularity in France, it has become one of the key blending grapes in that posh pale stuff, Provence Rosé, where they call it Rollo. But for now, we're sticking with it as a white wine, strutting its stuff on its own. Not too far from the Provence region though.
Now, Vermentino definitely sounds very Italian, and I can't remember many Italian wines with French-sounding grapes. I thought these guys kept themselves to themselves, like no sharing of work allowed here.
You'd be surprised actually how much winemaking these two countries share. Vermentino originated in Sardinia and made its way across to France. Italy's winemaking has been greatly influenced by France. The use of small oak barrels, in particular in red winemaking, and their very own Pinot Grigio is actually a different name for the original Pinot Gris from northern France.
Okay. So look, you've just mentioned oak aging. This is definitely a more full-bodied white wine, and there's a richness to it. No doubt you're going to tell me that's coming from oak. It's almost like creamy.
Unfortunately, you've not guessed it this time. No oak here, but another aging technique that is commonly used with white wines, lees aging. Lees is the French word for yeast. What they do is after the yeast has done its job of turning sugar into alcohol, the yeast would usually die off, slowly sink to the bottom of the tank and eventually be filtered away. With lees aging, that yeast is left in the wine, being stirred up regularly for several days, if not weeks, before finally being filtered off. What it makes is a dairy-like flavour in white wine. Wines that you might describe as creamy or buttery or rich have, like this one, undergone lees aging.
Okay, look, love it. You know, crisp and refreshing, but with some extra oomph from that lees aging. What can we pair this one with?
It's not super fruity, this wine, but the dairy flavours really do come through. I try it with chicken, with any type of cream-based sauce.
Oh, dreamy.
Cheers.
This is the Montroche Vin Viognier from the Pays d'Oc in France.
Yes, Viognier, a white grape born in the Côte de Rhône region of France, now found all over the world. However, for this one, we're just down the road from the Rhône in the Pays d'Oc, a large region that covers a huge part of southern France and is home to a lot of sun-loving grapes.
Now, Sam, I know enough that we're in the south of France here and it's pretty hot. The grapes have got to be pretty hardy to survive. That usually means mostly red, and if they're white, they're mostly Chardonnay. So where does Viognier fit in?
That's right, if we are in the warmest parts of wine-growing countries, you aren't going to see the prettier, more fussy white grapes like Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot Grigio. Chardonnay, the hardy all-rounder, is often the go-to. However, Viognier is a fantastic warm climate white grape. Its skins are super thick and quite waxy to cope with the scorching sun. That actually gives the wine a thicker, waxy texture. Some wine buffs actually describe it as oily. Not in taste, mind, just in how it feels in the mouth.
Yeah, okay, I'm not sure I'm sold on wine that feels oily in the mouth, but what does that mean for flavour?
Where most white wines tend to sway from citrus to stone fruit or maybe tropical fruit flavours, Viognier has two key giveaway tasting notes: a tangy orange flavour and honey.
Yeah, I mean, I do get that tang, and it isn't unpleasant, thanks to that honey-like richness. You know, why didn't you say the texture was like honey, not oil? Nobody likes oil. Why have I not seen much of this grape before?
Viognier, like many grapes in the south of France, is often blended. All white Côte de Rhône, yes there is such a thing, is a blend of Viognier, Marsanne and Roussanne. Some famous red Côte de Rhônes even blend in Viognier for that rich texture. On its own, though, it makes a great change from Chardonnay for those who love a bigger, richer white wine.
Okay, so what am I eating with this one then?
I love that Viognier still has a refreshing white wine acidity, but with a richness, so pair it with fish or seafood pasta where the sauce is really punchy, whether big and creamy or a bit spicy.
I mean, big and creamy for me, please.
Cheers.
Cheers. This is the Félicette Grenache Blanc from the Pays d'Oc in France.
The grape here is Grenache Blanc, the sister to red grape Grenache from the Côte de Rhône. If you love Sauvignon Blanc, this is going to be right up your street. It's a fantastic alternative to Sauv Blanc. It also turns up often in white Rioja, which is becoming very popular at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, it says from the Pays d'Oc. It's not a wine region that's particularly famous or often really talked about, but I have seen it written on lots of bottles from French wines. What's that all about, and how does it compare to some of those more famous regions, you know, like your Bordeaux or your Côte de Rhône?
So the more famous regions that you're talking about, and most of us have heard of typically, are what's called AOCs, Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée. These are a level or certification in France that mean that the region has a specific set of rules and regs that make its winemaking the way it is. An AOC is a sign of quality, but not a guarantee. There's lots of variation within an AOC, which is why we don't worship those famous regions here at Smash Grapes. The Pays d'Oc is what's called an IGP. It's a geographically protected area and it has a sign of quality, but less rules and regs means that the wine tends to be better value for money. The sweet spot is when you get an IGP wine, like this one from the Pays d'Oc, that crosses over into an AOC area, in this case the Languedoc. Then you get all the quality and the know-how, but with less of the bureaucracy that inflates prices.
Wow, okay, enough of the acronyms now. What are we tasting in the actual glass? You say Grenache Blanc is a Sauvignon lover's friend, but when I think of Sauv, it's on the lighter end of the white wine scale. This is punching at 13.5%.
Yet that Southern France heat has really ripened up this baby. Grenache and Grenache Blanc are real sun worshippers. They suck up those ripening rays and get packed full of fruity flavours. I guess you can think of this as like Sauvignon on steroids.
Yeah, I mean, look, it actually doesn't taste too alcoholic either. I guess that's down to quality winemaking. And for a big white, it's still got that kind of lip-smacking, refreshing acidity that you get from a great Sauv. What would you pair this one with?
This is a big white wine, so it could probably handle a bit of pork, perhaps some herby chops, or a bit of belly with cream sauce.
Oof, I'm all over that. Cheers. This is the Mont Sable Chardonnay from the Pays d'Oc in France.
Yes, Chardonnay, a grape that many will write off immediately, but arguably France's most important white grape. Not only that, but the world's most widely planted white grape.
Now, here at Smash Grapes, Sam, we are no strangers to the words anything but Chardonnay. You know, what's that all about, and why are we stocking them if that's the case?
Yes, unfortunately, Chardonnay has suffered a bit of a bad rep over the last couple of decades. Thanks to some pretty shoddy winemaking in the 80s, covered up by doses of oak that would left you feeling like you'd had a mouthful of floor sweepers from Wix. Chardonnay is, however, an incredibly diverse grape. It can cope with any weather and is different depending on that weather, which is why it's grown all over the world. It also pops up in places that perhaps you didn't expect.
Champagne.
Chardonnay.
Chablis.
Chardonnay.
The Macon villages.
Chardonnay.
Domaine de la Voucher Chevalier Montroche Grand Cru.
Chardonnay. Yes, Chardonnay makes up some of the most prestigious French wines, particularly, as Dan so beautifully pronounced, one of the many white Burgundies. White Burgundy can be summed up as high acid, crisp and refreshing, with bags of fruit and just a hint of subtle oak to add richness to the wine. These guys are pros, but they're also up their own asses. Travel not far down the road to the Pays d'Oc and you can find fantastic examples of subtly oaked Chardonnay, just like this one.
Yeah, this wine definitely feels like Bridgerton meets Moulin Rouge, classy but sexy. There's a lot I like about it. I'm guessing it's fit for a bit of a banquet as well.
Absolutely, this was one of our top picks for Christmas dinner last year and will go down brilliantly with any roasted bird. Lots of flavours in one wine, so it can suit a meal with lots on the table.
I mean, I will have it on my table.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching our drink along videos. We hope you enjoyed the wine. Don't forget to come back and spend your £10 voucher on your favourite.